High above Earth's atmosphere, the alien starship Dominance hung silently in space. Inside, Commander Rixel of the Ravak species stared at the blue planet with his 4 eyes. His gray, scaled skin reflected the soft light of the ship's bridge as he watched the primitive planet's military activities through their advanced sensors. "Look at them," he said to his second-in-command. "They still use projectile weapons and wheeled vehicles. This conquest will be simple." His mandibles clicked in amusement as he watched the humans training far below. On Earth, at Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton, Staff Sergeant Lisa Park wasn't thinking about aliens or space battles. She was focused on getting her Marines into shape. The hot California sun beat down on them as they ran through their combat drills. "Move it, people," she shouted, her voice carrying across the training ground. "The enemy won't wait for you to catch your breath." Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her uniform was perfectly pressed despite the heat. 20 Marines ran through the obstacle course carrying full gear. They climbed walls, crawled under barbed wire, and practiced urban combat techniques. Lisa watched them with pride. These weren't just soldiers. They were United States Marines, the finest fighting force on Earth. Back on the alien ship, the Ravaks continued their observation. Their scientific officer, Kelkrix, brought up more data on the main screen. "Humans have only achieved basic spaceflight," he reported. "Their most advanced weapons are nuclear devices, and their combat vehicles still run on fossil fuels." Commander Rixel laughed. The sound was like stones grinding together. "Our energy weapons will make short work of their primitive armor. Their projectile weapons won't even scratch our shields." On the training ground, Lisa noticed something odd in the sky. A brief flash of light that shouldn't have been there. She dismissed it and turned back to her Marines. "Listen up. In real combat, you won't get second chances. Every move you make needs to be perfect the first time." Corporal Mike Reeves, one of her best soldiers, approached her with a water bottle. "Staff Sergeant, the new recruits are getting better," he said, wiping sweat from his face. "They need to be better than better," Lisa replied. "Something doesn't feel right today." She couldn't shake the feeling that they were being washed. In orbit, the Ravak ship's crew prepared their report for the invasion fleet. "Humans organize their military into different branches," reported Kelkrix. "This group calls themselves Marines. They appear to train harder than the others, but their methods are outdated." Commander Rixel nodded. "Send word to the fleet. Earth will make an excellent addition to the Ravak's empire. Their oceans alone contain enough resources to power our civilization for centuries." Lisa finished the day's training as the sun began to set. She watched her Marines clean their weapons and pack up their gear. Years of combat experience in different war zones had taught her to trust her instincts. Today, those instincts were screaming that something was wrong. In her office later that evening, she reviewed the day's training videos. In one frame, she caught something strange. A brief distortion in the sky, like heat waves but too high up. She played it again, but couldn't figure out what it was. "Getting paranoid in your old age, Bark," she muttered to herself. But she couldn't shake the feeling. She'd seen enough combat to know that the calm before the storm was often the most dangerous time. The Ravak ship prepared to leave Earth's orbit. Commander Rixel sent his final message to the invasion fleet. "Planet is suitable for conquest. Military forces use primitive technology and outdated tactics. Estimated time for complete planetary subjugation, 3 Earth days." As Lisa left the base that night, she looked up at the stars. 20 years as a Marine had taught her to prepare for anything. Tomorrow, she would push her Marines even harder. Better to be over-prepared than caught off guard. She had no way of knowing that in just a few days, those combat drills would mean the difference between Earth's survival and its conquest. The aliens watching from above had made a crucial mistake. They had judged humanity's weapons, but they had failed to measure humanity's will to fight. The first sign of invasion came at dawn. Marine Captain Hannah Kim was drinking her morning coffee when the sky turned purple. Massive ships broke through the clouds above Camp Pendleton, their dark hulls blocking out the sun. "Sound the alarm," she shouted, running toward the command center. The base sirens began to wail. Marines rushed to their positions, weapons ready. Years of training kicked in automatically. In orbit, Commander Rixol watched with satisfaction. "Begin the first wave," he ordered. "Target their military installations. Show them the power of our superior technology." Bright beams of energy shot down from the alien ships. They expected the humans to run in fear. Instead, the Marines responded with disciplined precision. Captain Kim's voice rang out over the base communications. "All units, execute Emergency Plan Delta. This is not a drill." Staff Sergeant Lisa Park and her Marines were already moving. They had trained for everything, except aliens, but Marines adapt. They grabbed their gear and spread out, using buildings and terrain for cover, just as they had practiced countless times. Their weapons are energy-based. Lisa shouted as she watched the alien beams hit a tank. "They're not as powerful as they look. The tank armor is holding." The Ravaks were stunned. Their sensors showed the humans taking cover in organized groups, returning fire with their primitive weapons. Commander Rixol's mandibles clicked in annoyance. Impossible. Their projectile weapons should be useless. But they weren't. Marine snipers discovered that their bullets could penetrate the alien personal shields. The Ravaks had designed their defenses against energy weapons, not good old-fashioned lead. Captain Kim coordinated the defense from the command center. 2nd Battalion, move to Sector 4. 3rd Battalion, provide covering fire. Her calm voice helped keep everyone focused. This wasn't like any war they had fought before, but they were Marines. They would adapt and overcome. A group of alien soldiers landed near the base perimeter. They were tall, gray-skinned creatures with 4 arms, each carrying what looked like glowing rifles. They moved in perfect formation, following textbook military tactics. Lisa saw their mistake immediately. "They're not checking their corners." She called to her unit. "They're fighting like it's an open field." Her Marines used their urban combat training, moving through buildings and using angles the aliens didn't expect. The Ravak soldiers were confused. Their combat training had never prepared them for enemies who fought like this. Humans seemed to appear from nowhere, strike hard, and disappear again. Why aren't they standing and fighting? One alien commander asked in frustration. This isn't proper military behavior. Captain Kim received reports from all sectors. The aliens had better technology, but the Marines had something more important: experience in real combat. They knew that perfect formations meant nothing in actual battle. Keep them guessing, she ordered. Use everything we've learned in urban warfare. The aliens retreated to regroup. They had expected an easy victory, but found themselves facing an enemy that refused to follow their rules of warfare. Commander Rixol stared at the battlefield displays in disbelief. How are they doing this? He demanded. They're using primitive weapons and tactics. Lisa's unit had taken up positions in a damaged building. She watched the alien ships through her binoculars. They're pulling back, she said to her Marines. They don't know what to do when the enemy doesn't fight the way they expect. Captain Kim gathered her officers for a quick meeting. This is just the first wave, she told them. They'll be back. But now we know something important. They can bleed. As the sun set on the first day of battle, the aliens hadn't gained an inch of ground. Their superior technology had met something they didn't understand: Marine Corps training and determination. In orbit, Commander Rixol prepared a new message for his superiors. Initial assault encountered unexpected resistance. Human Marines display unusual combat tactics. Request reinforcements. This may take longer than expected. On Earth, Captain Kim and Staff Sergeant Park prepared their Marines for tomorrow. The aliens would be back, but now the Marines knew they could fight them. More importantly, they knew they could win. Marine Intelligence Officer J. Park sat in a dimly lit room, surrounded by screens showing alien technology readings. He hadn't slept in 24 hours, but he couldn't stop now. Not when he was so close to understanding how the alien weapons worked. "Look at this pattern," he said to Technical Sergeant Amy Cho, who was analyzing alien communication signals. "Their energy weapons have a power cycle. They need 3 seconds to recharge after each shot." Amy nodded, her eyes fixed on her own screens. "And I found something in their radio signals. They use a very strict communication pattern. Every message follows the same format, like they can't think outside their training." In orbit, the Ravaks were having their own meeting. Commander Rixel faced his officers, all of them confused by their failure to take the Marine base. "How can they resist us?" Rixel demanded. "Our technology is centuries ahead of theirs." His weapons officer spoke up. "Sir, the humans don't fight according to any military doctrine we know. They hide, they strike from unexpected angles, they use their primitive weapons in ways we never considered." Back at Camp Pendleton, Captain Hannah Kim met with her officers. Jay and Amy shared their findings with the group. "The aliens are predictable," Jay explained, pointing to a diagram. "They always attack in straight lines. They always follow the same patterns. They're like machines." Staff Sergeant Lisa Park smiled. "Then we'll be unpredictable. That's what Marines do best." Amy played a recording of alien communications. "They get confused when we don't follow their rules of warfare. They expect us to fight like they do, in open formation with clear battle lines. Then we'll hit them where they don't expect," Hannah said. "Jay, how can we use their recharge time against them?" Jay pointed to a captured alien weapon. 3 seconds doesn't seem like much. But if we time our attacks right, that's our window. They're completely vulnerable during recharge." Lisa turned to her Marines. "We'll break into small teams, strike during their recharge cycle, then move before they can respond. Use buildings, use debris, use anything for cover." In space, the Revaks continued their analysis. "These Marines are teaching other human military units their tactics," an officer reported. "The resistance is spreading." Commander Rixel slammed his fist down. "They are savages. They refuse to fight properly." A junior officer spoke quietly. "Sir, perhaps we should study their methods. They seem effective." Silence. Rixel roared. "We will not lower ourselves to their level. Send in the heavy assault units. We'll see how they handle our walker machines." At the base, Amy intercepted the alien orders. "They're bringing in walking tanks," she called out. "Big ones." Jay studied the incoming data. The walkers use the same power system as their hand weapons, same weakness. They need to recharge. Hannah gathered her officers. "We fought tanks before. The principle is the same. Find the weak spots, time your strikes, work together." Lisa prepared her Marines. "Remember your training. Everything we've learned fighting human enemies still applies. The aliens just haven't learned these lessons yet." The sun set on the second day of battle. The Marines prepared for tomorrow's fight, setting traps and planning ambush points. They had learned more about their enemy in 2 days than the aliens had learned about humans in all their observations. In orbit, Commander Rixel watched the planet below. "Tomorrow, we show them true power," he said to his officers. But a small doubt had crept into his mind. These humans, these Marines, they didn't fight like any enemy he had ever faced. On Earth, Jay and Amy continued their analysis through the night. Every piece of alien technology they studied showed the same thing. Advanced but inflexible, powerful but predictable. "They still think technology wins wars," Jay said, examining another alien device. Amy looked up from her communications data. "They're about to learn what every human enemy has learned before them. It's not the weapons that make Marines dangerous. It's the Marines themselves." Colonel Dana Ree stood before a map table in the command center, studying the positions of alien forces. The morning light was just beginning to break through the windows. It was time to show the aliens what Marines could really do. "The walker machines are their weak point," she said to Captain Hannah Kim. "They're too big, too slow to react. We can use that." Outside, Staff Sergeant Lisa Park was preparing her Marines for the day's mission. They had spent the night practicing with captured alien weapons. The energy rifles were powerful but predictable, just like their owners. "Remember the 3-second rule," Lisa told her team. "Hit them during recharge, then move. Don't get greedy." Corporal Michelle Song's special unit was ready with their new equipment, hooks and climbing gear modified to work on alien metal. They had tested them on captured alien materials all night. "We're going hunting," Michelle told her team with a smile. "Those walkers won't know what hit them." In orbit, Commander Rixel watched his walker units move into position. "The humans will break when they see our full power," he said confidently. But there was worry in his voice. The battle began at dawn. The alien walkers stepped forward, their energy cannons glowing. But the Marines were ready. They had faced tanks before. These were just tanks that could walk. Now, Colonel Ree ordered through the radio. All across the battlefield, Marines moved like shadows between buildings and debris. Michelle's team struck first. They used their modified climbing gear to scale the legs of the nearest walker. The aliens had never thought to put shields down there. Why would they? No enemy had ever been crazy enough to climb their war machines. "Charges set," Michelle called out. Her team slid down and ran for cover. The explosion took out the walker's knee joint. The massive machine crashed to the ground. The aliens were shocked. This wasn't how battles were supposed to work. Their training had no chapter about enemies climbing their walkers. Lisa's unit used the confusion to strike. They fired their normal rifles at the aliens' weak points, then switched to captured energy weapons when the alien shields were down. The combination was devastating. "They're falling back," Hannah reported from her command post. "The walker units are trying to retreat." Jay Park's voice came over the radio from the intelligence center. "Their communications are in chaos. They don't have protocols for this kind of attack." Colonel Ree smiled. "Press the advantage. All units, move forward. Don't let them regroup." The Marines advanced like a wave, using every piece of cover, every trick they had learned in years of combat. Alien soldiers fell back in confusion, their perfect formations breaking apart. Technical Sergeant Amy Cho intercepted more alien communications. "They're calling for help," she reported. "Their commanders don't understand what's happening." Michelle's team had taken down 3 more walkers. Her Marines had gotten so good at it that they could disable a walker in under 2 minutes. The aliens still hadn't figured out how to stop them. "This is impossible," Commander Rixel shouted on his bridge. "They're savages. They're primitives. How are they defeating our best weapons?" Lisa watched another walker fall. "Because we're Marines," she said quietly, even though the aliens couldn't hear her. "We adapt. We overcome. We win." By sunset, the aliens had lost half their walker units. Their ground forces had retreated to their landing zones. The Marines had captured tons of alien equipment and were already learning to use it. Colonel Ree gathered her officers for a briefing. "Today we proved something important," she said. "Their technology isn't magical. Their tactics aren't perfect. They can be beaten." In orbit, Commander Rixel faced an ugly truth. His invasion force, with all its advanced technology, was being defeated by humans with primitive weapons and impossible tactics. "Perhaps," he said quietly to his second-in-command, "we should have studied these Marines more carefully before we attacked." On the ground, the Marines prepared for tomorrow. They had won today, but the war wasn't over. Still, they had proven what they knew all along. It wasn't the weapons that made Marines dangerous. It was their spirit, their training, and their ability to adapt. Lieutenant Colonel Grace Kim stood in front of a captured alien walker, studying its design. Her engineering team had spent 3 days taking it apart and putting it back together. Now, they were ready to use it. "The aliens think their technology is their strength," she said to the gathered Marines. "We're going to show them it's their weakness." Inside the command center, Jay Park and Amy Cho had made another breakthrough. They had cracked the alien shield frequency patterns. Every alien shield changed its energy pattern in the same way, like clockwork. They never expected anyone to study their technology this closely, Amy said, showing her findings to Colonel Dana Ree. They thought we were too primitive to understand it. Staff Sergeant Lisa Park led her unit through the newly created training course. They were practicing with a mix of human and alien weapons. The combination was proving deadly effective. "Switch weapons," she shouted. Her Marines smoothly changed from their regular rifles to captured alien energy guns. The aliens never expected their own weapons to be used against them. In orbit, Commander Rixel received more bad news. The humans weren't just resisting, they were learning. Each battle taught them more about Revac's technology and tactics. "Impossible," he shouted, reading the latest reports. "They've modified our walker units. They're using them against us." On the ground, Lieutenant Colonel Kim's modified walker stomped forward. Her team had added human weapons to it. The alien shields couldn't stop bullets, and their armor couldn't stop energy weapons. Now the walker could fire both. "All units, advance," Colonel reordered. Marines moved forward in perfect coordination, using techniques perfected in countless urban battles. They fought building by building, street by street. Sergeant Major Beth Lee's experience in city fighting proved invaluable. Her unit had fought in 3 major urban battles before the aliens came. Now they used those same skills against the Revacs. "They don't understand cover," Beth called out to her Marines. "They don't check corners. Use it against them." The aliens were learning painful lessons. Their rigid tactics failed in the chaos of street fighting. Their perfect formations broke apart in the maze of buildings and debris. How do they keep appearing from nowhere? An alien officer cried as another position fell to the Marines. They had never faced an enemy who used the environment so well. Grace's modified walker reached a key intersection. Its human guns tore through alien shields. Its alien energy weapons melted through their armor. The combination was unstoppable. "Push them back," Colonel reordered. "Don't give them time to adapt." The aliens tried to adjust their shields, but Amy had cracked their codes. Every time they changed frequencies, she changed the Marines' captured weapons to match. "They're running," Jay reported, watching through drone feeds. "Their formations are breaking." Lisa's unit moved up to support the walker. They had learned to time their attacks perfectly. Human bullets followed by alien energy blasts. The Revacs had no defense against warriors who used both. Commander Rixel watched in horror as his forces retreated. "What kind of soldiers are these?" he demanded. "How can they learn our technology so quickly?" "We're Marines," Grace said proudly as her walker crushed another alien position. "Adapting and overcoming is what we do." Colonel Ree gathered her officers for a new briefing. The holographic map showed more green areas now, territory retaken from the aliens. "We've reached the turning point," she told them. "Now we take the fight to them." On the battlefield, Marines moved with growing confidence. They had faced the aliens' best weapons and won. They had taken alien technology and made it better. The sun set on another day of battle, but this time was different. The Marines weren't just defending anymore. They were winning. And the aliens were finally learning what it meant to face the finest fighting force on Earth. Major Susan Park crouched behind a fallen alien walker, watching her wounded fellow Marine. Private Tom Wilson had been hit bad, but he was still fighting. The alien energy beam had burned through his armor, yet he kept providing cover fire for his unit. "Wilson, fall back," Susan ordered. "That's an order." "Sorry, Major," he called back, firing another burst at the approaching aliens. "Can't do that. Rest of the unit's still pulling back. Someone's got to keep these guys busy." In orbit, Commander Rixel watched the scene through his ship's cameras. He couldn't understand what he was seeing. By all logic, the wounded human should retreat. Instead, he stayed, risking death to protect others. "Their behavior makes no sense," Rixel said to his officers. "They ignore orders when they think they can save their fellow warriors. How can an army function this way?" On the ground, Staff Sergeant Lisa Park led her unit in a rescue mission. They had to get Wilson out. No Marine gets left behind. That was a promise they all made to each other. Covering fire, Lisa shouted. Her Marines laid down a wall of bullets and energy blasts. The aliens ducked behind their shields, giving Susan's team the chance they needed. 2 Marines ran forward through the chaos. They reached Wilson, grabbed him, and started pulling him back. The aliens expected them to retreat now that they had their wounded companion. Instead, the Marines charged forward. Push them back, Susan ordered. Her unit advanced, firing captured alien weapons alongside their traditional rifles. The aliens fell back, confused by the humans' aggressive move. In the command center, Colonel Dana Ree watched the battle unfold. "This is what they don't understand," she said to Captain Hannah Kim. "Our strength isn't in our weapons. It's in our people." Hannah nodded. "Every Marine knows the others have their back. We fight harder because we fight for each other." The aliens were learning this lesson the hard way. Their sensors showed them another scene they couldn't understand. A Marine unit was pinned down by heavy fire, running low on ammunition. Instead of surrendering, nearby units rushed to help them. Marines shared ammo, dragged wounded companions to safety, and fought even harder to protect each other. Their emotional bonds make them weak, an alien officer insisted. They risked too much for individual soldiers. But Commander Rixel wasn't so sure anymore. He watched as the Marines' fierce loyalty to each other made them fight harder, not weaker. A young alien soldier asked his commander, "What does Semper Fi mean?" "The humans keep saying it. It means always faithful," the commander replied. They remain faithful to each other, no matter what. On the battlefield, Susan's unit had pushed the aliens back. Wilson was safe, being treated by medics. But the Marines didn't stop. They kept advancing, determined to make the aliens pay for hurting one of their own. "This is why we're winning," Lisa told her Marines during a brief rest. "The aliens fight because they're ordered to. We fight for each other." In orbit, Rixel received reports from all fronts. Everywhere, the same story repeated. The Marines fought with a determination his forces couldn't match. They took crazy risks to save each other, but those risks kept working. "Perhaps," he said quietly, "we were wrong about what makes a strong military force." As night fell, the Marines regrouped and prepared for tomorrow's battles. Wilson would live, thanks to his fellow Marines' bravery. The aliens had lost more ground, pushed back by warriors who fought with both skill and heart. Colonel Ree visited the wounded in the medical bay. "The aliens thought our emotions made us weak," she said to her officers. "They're learning that our greatest strength is our bond with each other." The aliens had come expecting to find primitive warriors. Instead, they found something they had never seen before. Soldiers who fought not just with weapons and tactics, but with loyalty, courage, and an unbreakable spirit. Captain Rachel Cho stood at the head of her assault team, checking their equipment one last time. They had trained for this mission for 5 days straight. Now it was time to strike at the heart of the alien command. "Remember," she told her Marines, "we're not just fighting with weapons today. We're fighting with their minds." Technical Sergeant Amy Cho had discovered something important about the alien command structure. The Ravax leaders needed constant communication with their troops. Without direct orders, the alien soldiers became confused and disorganized. Their biggest weakness is their rigid chain of command, Amy explained during the final briefing. "Break that, and their whole army falls apart." Colonel Dana Ree approved the bold plan. Captain Cho's team would strike the alien command center, while Lieutenant Colonel Grace Kim's modified walkers provided a distraction. "Begin Operation Chaos," Colonel Ree ordered as the sun rose. Grace's walkers moved forward, firing a mix of human and alien weapons. The aliens responded exactly as expected. They called their commanders for orders, following their strict protocols. "They're so predictable," Staff Sergeant Lisa Park said, watching from her position. Her unit waited in the shadows, ready to support Rachel's assault team. The aliens never saw the real attack coming. While they focused on the walkers, Rachel's team moved through the city's underground tunnels. The aliens hadn't even bothered to guard them. Why would they? Their scans showed nothing down there. But the Marines had lined the tunnels with special materials that blocked alien sensors, another trick they had learned from studying captured technology. In position, Rachel whispered into her radio. Her team was right under the alien command center. Above ground, the battle grew more intense. Grace's walkers pushed forward, drawing more and more alien forces. The alien commanders were too busy giving orders to notice the danger beneath their feet. Now, Rachel ordered. Her team placed charges on the tunnel ceiling. The explosions shot upward, creating holes right into the alien command center. The Marines surged up through the holes, using captured alien weapons and their own rifles. The alien commanders had never expected an attack from below. Their shields were pointed the wrong way. Their communications are in chaos, Amy reported from the command center. The alien troops aren't getting clear orders anymore. Rachel's team moved through the command center with practiced skill. They had memorized every detail from stolen alien plans. Each Marine knew exactly where to go and what to do. Capture them alive if you can, Rachel ordered. Dead commanders can't order their troops to surrender. The alien leaders tried to fight back, but they had never trained for close combat. They didn't know what to do when Marines came at them with combat knives and hand-to-hand fighting skills. Commander Rixel watched in horror from orbit as his ground command center fell. How? He demanded. How did they get past our sensors? On the battlefield, the alien troops felt their commander's loss immediately. Without constant orders, they didn't know what to do. Their perfect formations broke apart. Their coordinated attacks fell into confusion. Push them back, Colonel reordered. All across the city, Marines attacked the disorganized alien forces. Grace's walkers advanced faster now, meeting less organized resistance. Lisa's unit moved in to support Rachel's team. They secured the command center while Rachel's Marines rounded up alien leaders. The captured commanders stared in shock at the humans who had somehow defeated their superior technology. Your soldiers, one alien commander said to Rachel, they fight like nothing we have ever seen. That's because we're not just soldiers, Rachel replied. We're Marines. We think for ourselves. We adapt. We overcome. By sunset, the alien army was in full retreat. Without their rigid command structure, they fell apart. The Marines had broken not just their military strength, but their entire way of fighting. In orbit, Commander Rixel faced a terrible choice. His ground forces were defeated. His command structure was captured. His perfect invasion plan had fallen apart against an enemy he had completely underestimated. Send the signal, he ordered quietly. Begin evacuation procedures. On Earth, the Marines celebrated their victory, but stayed ready for more fighting. They had won a major battle, but the war wasn't over yet. Still, they had proved something important. No matter how advanced the enemy's technology, the human spirit was stronger. Brigade Commander Ellen Park stood in the meeting room of the alien flagship, facing Commander Rixel across a large table. She wore her formal Marine uniform, proud and straight-backed. The alien leader had requested this meeting after 3 straight days of defeats on the ground. You have beaten us, Rixel said simply. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence. We do not understand how, but you have beaten us. Ellen smiled slightly. You made a simple mistake. You thought technology wins wars. We knew better. In the captured command center below, Staff Sergeant Lisa Park and Captain Rachel Cho watched the meeting through video feeds. Their Marines stood ready, just in case the aliens tried anything foolish. Your weapons were more advanced, Ellen continued. Your ships were more powerful. But you forgot the most important thing in any battle, the warriors themselves. Technical Sergeant Amy Cho's voice came through the radio. All alien frequencies are quiet. They're actually listening to her. Major Susan Park led her unit in securing another alien landing zone. The remaining alien troops were surrendering without a fight. They had seen enough of what Marines could do. "Every Marine is a rifleman," Ellen told the alien commander. "That means we all learn to fight. We all learn to think. We all learn to adapt." Lieutenant Colonel Grace Kim stood nearby in the meeting room, watching the aliens carefully. Her modified walker units stood guard outside the ship, a symbol of how humans had taken alien technology and made it better. "Your soldiers only follow orders," Ellen said. "Our Marines know how to think for themselves. When something goes wrong, they adapt. When they see an opportunity, they take it." Commander Rixel nodded slowly. "We saw this. Your warriors would change tactics in the middle of battle. They would use our own weapons against us in ways we never considered." Colonel Dana Ree entered the room with J. Park. They carried data tablets showing the terms of surrender. The aliens would leave Earth and never return. "But there's something more important than tactics," Ellen said. "Something you never understood about us." "What is that?" Rixel asked. "We fight for each other," Ellen answered. "Not just for orders or duty. Every Marine knows that their fellow Marines will never abandon them. That makes us stronger than any weapon." Outside the ship, Marines stood guard in mixed units. Some carried traditional rifles, others held captured alien weapons. They had learned to use both, combining Earth and alien technology in ways the Ravaks had never imagined. "Your invasion failed," Ellen said firmly, "because you looked at our weapons and decided we were primitive. You never looked at our spirit." Rixel signed the surrender document. His hand shook slightly as he wrote. "We will tell others," he said. "Earth is not to be attacked. The Marines are not to be underestimated." As the alien ships prepared to leave Earth, Ellen gathered all the Marine commanders for a final briefing. They had won, but they needed to stay ready. There might be other aliens out there, making the same mistake. "We've shown the galaxy something important," she told them. "Technology doesn't win wars. Training doesn't win wars. Spirit wins wars. And nobody has more spirit than the United States Marines." The sun set on the final day of the alien invasion. The Ravak ships lifted off, leaving Earth's atmosphere. They had come expecting an easy victory over primitive warriors. They left understanding that true military power isn't measured in weapons or technology. Commander Rixel looked at Earth one last time from his bridge. "Remember this lesson," he told his officers. "Never judge an enemy by their weapons. Judge them by their warriors. And these Marines, they are the finest warriors we have ever faced." On Earth, the Marines began cleaning up after the battle. They had new weapons to study, new tactics to learn, and new stories to tell. But most importantly, they had proved what they had always known. It wasn't the weapons that made Marines dangerous. It was the Marines themselves.